The Long Way Round. Chapter 1. What Norm would have said. Norm died on a Tuesday, which felt typical of him. He'd always done things on the days when nobody expected anything to happen, when the rest of us were halfway through something else and not paying attention. He died of a heart attack, at 67, while apparently arguing with a self-checkout machine at a grocery store in Tucson, Arizona, and if you knew Norm, you understood immediately that this was not an undignified death but an entirely characteristic one. He lost the argument, for the first time in his life, which his daughter told us at the memorial and which made half the room laugh and the other half cry, which was also entirely characteristic of Norm. My name is Ray Kowalski. I am 68 years old. I am a retired high school history teacher, a grandfather of 2, a man whose knees have opinions about the weather, and, as of the morning after Norm Castellanos' memorial service, a man who had agreed to drive a 1973 Buick Estate station wagon from Columbus, Ohio, to Santa Fe, New Mexico, with 2 men I have known since the 7th grade and not spent more than 4 consecutive days within the past 30 years. The other 2 men are Lou Ferreira and Dennis Okafor. I want to describe them accurately and with the generosity of long friendship. Lou is 67, built like a man who used to play football and is still dining out on that fact, recently retired from running a mid-sized hardware distribution company, and the kind of person who in any given situation will have a strong opinion delivered at a volume appropriate for a larger room. He is also the most loyal person I have ever known in my life, and would drive through a blizzard to bring you soup, which I know because he has done exactly this. Lou's minor health quirk, for the record, is that he takes 11 different supplements every morning, and has specific, deeply held views about each one, which he will share with you whether or not you have indicated any interest. Dennis is 68, a recently retired civil engineer, precise in all things, meticulous in a way that has been useful during bridge design, and somewhat exhausting during road trips, and possessed of a blood pressure condition that his doctor has told him to manage with reduced stress and regular breathing exercises. He manages it instead with a sequence of sighs so perfectly expressive that they constitute their own language. He is also, when he stops managing everything long enough to remember who he is, the funniest person in any room. We had been friends since 1969. Norm had been the 4th. And the morning after the memorial, the 3 of us were sitting in Lou's kitchen at 7 a.m. with bad coffee, and the specific silence of people who have just buried someone they expected to have for another 20 years, when Dennis said he would have wanted us to do something stupid. Lou and I looked at him. Not reckless. Dennis clarified. Stupid. There's a distinction. Define stupid. I said. Something that sounds like a bad idea when you say it out loud but turns out to be the exact right idea. The kind of thing you'd tell Norm about, and he'd say, "Now we're talking." There was a pause. Then Lou, who had been staring into his coffee, said, "The wagon." Dennis and I both knew exactly what he meant. The 1973 Buick Estate. Wood-paneled, bench-seated, approximately the size of a naval vessel, that we had driven across 7 states the summer after high school in Norm's uncle's car, with $4 between us and a cassette player that only worked going uphill. Norm had driven most of it. He had done so sitting sideways with one arm out the window and an expression of profound satisfaction, like a man who has arrived precisely where he was always supposed to be. "You can't find one of those," I said. "You can find anything," said Lou, and picked up his phone, and found one in 45 minutes, in a used car lot in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, forest green with functioning wood paneling and a cassette deck that the seller described as mostly reliable, which we all agreed was good enough. We drove out to see it on Saturday. Dennis drove, because Dennis always drives, using a map app that directed us with the calm authority of someone who has never been wrong, and which got us lost twice because the seller's address was technically a county road that didn't exist in the app's understanding of the world. We found the lot anyway, At the end of a gravel road between a soybean field and what appeared to be a very small taxidermist's operation. The wagon was sitting at the far end of the lot, half in shade, and when I saw it, I felt something move in my chest that I hadn't felt in a long time and couldn't immediately name. Lou made a noise. Dennis stood very still. We walked around it 3 times without speaking. "We're doing this," Lou said. It was not a question. "We're doing this," I said. Dennis sighed his most eloquent sigh, which contained within it the acknowledgement that, yes, we were doing this, that it was probably fine, that he would nevertheless be bringing a paper map and a first aid kit, and that he reserved the right to say he'd told us so at any point, regardless of what he'd told us or when. "Norm would have loved this car," he said quietly. "Yeah," I said. "He really would have." Chapter 2. Departures and the problem of the map. We left on a Thursday morning in early October, which was Dennis's compromise between Lou's "let's go Saturday" and my "maybe we should plan this a little more thoroughly." The specific nature of our planning was as follows. Dennis had acquired a Rand McNally Road Atlas of the United States, the full-sized one, the one you need 2 hands to hold open, and had marked our intended route in orange highlighter with a precision that suggested he'd been up late. Lou had packed what he described as essentials and what turned out to be a duffel bag of supplements, a pillow that his wife had apparently insisted on, and a grocery bag containing 6 bags of beef jerky and a quantity of mixed nuts. I had packed sensibly and also brought a shoebox of cassette tapes I'd found at the back of a closet, which smelled like 1974 and still, somehow, had most of the songs on them. The rules we'd agreed on, in the spirit of Norm and the summer of 1972, were 3. No GPS navigation, paper maps only. No streaming, cassettes only. No chains, roadside diners only. We had written them on a piece of paper and taped it to the dashboard. Lou had already violated Rule 3 at the gas station where we fueled up, because he'd bought a breakfast sandwich from a wrapper that said, "Fresh and fast," in a font that I felt was deeply dishonest, but we agreed this was a pre-departure technicality and didn't count. The wagon drove beautifully. By which I mean it drove like 1973. Loudly, confidently, with a chassis that communicated every variation in road surface directly and enthusiastically to your lower back. The engine made a sound somewhere between a purr and a suggestion that it was managing its own enthusiasm. The cassette player, true to the seller's description, worked mostly reliably, with a slight tendency to slow down on long flat stretches, making Fleetwood Mac sound briefly like they were recording underwater. Road tape number 1. Side A. Fleetwood Mac. Go Your Own Way. The Eagles. Take It Easy. Creedence Clearwater Revival. Lodi. James Taylor. Carolina in My Mind. Lynyrd Skynyrd. Simple Man. Dennis navigated from the passenger seat with the atlas open across both knees, which meant that every time he needed to check our position, his elbows went out, and Lou, in the back, got one of them in the ribs, and every time Lou got an elbow in the ribs, he made a comment, and every time he made a comment, Dennis made a sighing noise, and within 40 miles we had recreated, with astonishing fidelity, the exact interior atmosphere of the summer of 1972. The first navigational problem arose approximately 90 minutes after Columbus, when Dennis announced that we needed to take Route 40 west, and the route that we were on appeared to have become, without consultation, Route 40 business, which was not the same thing. "Are we on 40 or 40 business?" I asked. "We are on whatever this is," Dennis said, gesturing at a road that had begun to narrow in a way that Road Atlas had not, in his estimation, predicted. "The map app would know," Lou said from the back, in a tone of entirely theatrical innocence. "The map app," Dennis said, "is not an option. The map app is how we ended up on a county road behind a taxidermist. We use the atlas." "The atlas," Lou said, "is from 2019. Roads don't change." "This road is changing," I said, Because it was, ending in a T-junction at a gravel lane with a handmade sign that said, "Eggs for sale," in letters that had optimistically started large and run out of board. We turned around, found Route 40, and got back on track at the cost of 22 minutes, and one modest argument that everyone agreed didn't count, because the map had been folded incorrectly in the first place, which Lou said, and which Dennis denied with such specificity that it was clearly true. By lunchtime we were in Indiana, which I have always found to be a state that arrives with minimal announcement and stretches considerably further than you expect. Lou had eaten through most of the beef jerky. Dennis had completed a breathing exercise at a red light while Lou and I watched him in respectful silence. I had answered 3 text messages from my daughter checking that we were alive, and had replied to each one with, "Fine, en route," and then immediately misspelled route as route, which felt like an omen I chose to ignore. We found a diner outside of Indianapolis at 12:30. It was called Marge's, which was a name that implied exactly the kind of diner it turned out to be. Formica countertops, spinning stools, a laminated menu with photographs of everything, and a woman behind the counter who looked at the wagon through the window and said, "Lord, what year is that?" 73. Lou said. "My daddy had one of those." She said. "Come in. Pie's good today." The pie was extremely good. So was the coffee, which was the real, diner kind. Not the kind with a name that takes longer to say than to drink, but the kind that arrives in a thick ceramic mug and means exactly what it is. Lou ordered the meatloaf. Dennis ordered a salad and then, after a pause of perhaps 4 seconds, ordered the meatloaf. I ordered chicken fried steak, which I haven't eaten in 15 years and which my doctor would probably prefer I continue not to eat, and it was the best thing I have put in my mouth since I can clearly remember. Marge. It was Marge, it could only have been Marge. Refilled our coffees twice without asking and, when we paid, said, "Where you boys headed?" "Santa Fe," I said. She nodded as though this was a reasonable thing. "Reason?" "Friend of ours died," Lou said. "We're doing it for him." She looked at us for a moment. Then she said, "Good," and went back behind the counter, and I felt the word land on all 3 of us in the particular way that the right word does when a stranger says it. Chapter 3. Missouri, Kansas, and a thing nobody said. We drove through Missouri on Friday, which involved a long, flat, sky-heavy stretch of Interstate 70 that gave us nothing to look at except each other, which turned out to be consequential. It started, as things between us always started, with an apparently unrelated conversation. Lou was expounding from the back seat on the benefits of CoQ10, which is a supplement I had not heard of before this trip, and about which I now know considerably more than I ever intended to. Dennis was making the sound he makes when he is listening politely and thinking about something else entirely. I was driving, watching the horizon fail to get any closer, and thinking, as I had been thinking quietly for 2 days, about what Dennis had said about Norm the morning after the memorial. Norm would have wanted us to do something stupid. The thing about Norm was that he'd always been the one who said things. Not mean things. Norm was not mean. But honest things, the things the rest of us had constructed elaborate internal architectures to avoid saying. He'd been doing it since the 7th grade. He once told Lou, with no preamble, in the middle of a lunch period in 1971, that Lou was wasting his time trying to be something he wasn't, and Lou had been furious for approximately 3 days, and then had to admit it was the most useful piece of information anyone had given him. He told me in 1987 that I was staying in a job I'd already outgrown because I was afraid of choosing wrong, which was also accurate and which I'd taken another 4 years to act on. The thing nobody had said. The thing I had been aware of for 2 days, sitting in the back of the wagon or the passenger seat, watching Lou and Dennis navigate their 11 supplement mornings and their Atlas arguments, was that we had all, in various ways, become lesser versions of ourselves. Not worse. Just smaller. The careers, the mortgages, the sensible decisions, the maintenance of a life. They had accumulated over us like sediment, and underneath it, somewhere, were three men who had driven this exact car across this exact country and felt, for 3 weeks in 1972, exactly who they were. I was thinking about this when Lou suddenly said, from the back seat, "Ray, you never told us why you quit coaching." I hadn't. I'd quit coaching the school's JV basketball team in 2003 and told everyone at the time it was the workload, and nobody had pushed on it because that seemed plausible and we were all busy. But Lou had apparently decided that Missouri was the correct location to push on it now, 21 years later, and since Lou had a bloodhound's instinct for the things people weren't saying, I suspected I was going to have to explain. "I quit," I said, after a pause. "Because the principal told me I had to cut a kid from the team who deserved to be on it, for reasons that had nothing to do with basketball. And I didn't fight him on it. I cut the kid. And afterward I felt so bad about it that I couldn't go back in the gym." The car was quiet for a moment. "The kid's name was Marcus," I said. "He's probably 40 now. He was a good player and a better kid, and I let him down because I didn't want to pick a fight with my employer." "That's why you quit," Dennis said. It wasn't a question. "That's why I quit." Another pause. Then Lou, who in 56 years of friendship had never once been sentimental when bluntness was available, said, "You've been carrying that a long time." "Yeah. Put it down." I looked at the road. "It's not that simple." "Course not," Lou said. "I didn't say it was simple. I said put it down." There was another silence, the kind that roads produce and that you can only have with people you've known for 50 years. Then Dennis cleared his throat and said, with considerable deliberateness, "Speaking of things we've been carrying." We both looked at him. Dennis does not usually speak of things he's been carrying. Dennis manages things, he does not speak of them. He was staring straight ahead out the passenger window at Missouri, which continued to be flat and unencouraging. "Carol and I almost didn't make it," he said. "Couple of years back. I'm talking seriously, didn't make it. I've never told either of you." Lou and I said nothing, which was, I think, the right thing. I was working 60-hour weeks on the Millbrook Overpass project. She was in the house alone with an empty nest, and I was there in body on weekends and nowhere else. She told me last spring that she'd spent 6 months thinking about leaving. He paused. "We went to counseling. It helped. We're good now, actually really good, better than we've been in years. But I've been..." He stopped. "I've been ashamed of it. Like I should have noticed sooner. Like I should have been better." "Den," Lou said, quietly. "Don't," Dennis said. "I don't need anything. I just..." Norm knew. I told him. And now he's the only one who knew, and I just needed it to not only be him anymore. I kept driving. The road kept being flat. After a while, Lou reached forward from the back seat and put his hand on Dennis's shoulder, briefly, and Dennis put his hand over it for a second, and then we all went back to looking at Missouri and not saying anything, and it was one of the most sustaining moments I can remember in recent years. We crossed into Kansas late in the afternoon. Lou put on road tape number 2, side B. Bob Seger came out of the cassette player slow and slightly warped and absolutely perfect. Road tape number 2, side B. Bob Seger. Against the Wind. Bruce Springsteen. The River. Tom Petty. Learning to Fly. Jackson Browne. Running on Empty. Lou from the back started singing along to Against the Wind in his large, uncalibrated baritone. Dennis, after approximately 15 seconds of resistance, joined in. I joined in. We were 3 men in their late 60s in a 50-year-old station wagon on the Kansas interstate, singing a song about getting older, which was either deeply sad or deeply funny or both simultaneously, and I thought, Norm, you absolute genius, you knew exactly what this would be. Chapter 4. Oklahoma, the supplement crisis, and the diners of Route 66. Oklahoma happened on Saturday, and Oklahoma was where the trip acquired its additional complications, of which there were 4. The first was Lou's supplements. Lou had packed 11 varieties, as established, in a clear Ziploc bag in the front pouch of his duffel. Somewhere between the Kansas border and Enid, Oklahoma, the Ziploc had apparently experienced a structural failure, and by the time Lou opened the duffel at a rest stop, the supplements, tablets, capsules, and one alarmingly large soft gel that he referred to simply as the Omega, had distributed themselves freely throughout the bag and begun fraternizing with his spare change, his phone charger cable, and 2 of the beef jerky bags, which had not been fully sealed and which had therefore introduced a beef jerky element to the situation that Lou felt was a contamination issue and I felt was an improvement. "I can't identify which is which anymore," Lou said, holding up a white capsule with genuine alarm. "This could be the B12 or the magnesium. Do you know what happens if you take the wrong magnesium?" "Tell us what happens if you take the wrong magnesium," Dennis said, with the tone of a man who believes no good can come of the answer. Lou told us. The answer was specific, detailed, and relevant to the fact that we were in a car. Dennis performed a breathing exercise. I suggested Lou simply not take anything that morning, which he treated as a proposal so radical it required a full minute of silent processing before he agreed, provisionally, and substituted the supplements with a gas station banana, which he ate with the resigned expression of a man who has been asked to go to war with a butter knife. The second complication was the map. The atlas, which had navigated us faithfully through Ohio, Indiana, Missouri, and Kansas, contained a representation of the Oklahoma highway system that Dennis described as optimistic and which I would describe as a creative interpretation. Specifically, 2 roads that the atlas showed as connected were connected only in a topographical sense, i.e., they were both roads on the same planet, but between them lay a construction diversion that had apparently been ongoing since at least 2022 and was not in any way marked on the 2019 atlas. We found this out by driving into it. Dennis's response, upon encountering the orange cones and the sign deviation, was a single long exhale that lasted approximately 4 seconds and conveyed, as precisely as language could, his feelings about paper navigation in the 21st century. Lou said, "Map app." Dennis said, "No." Lou said, Dennis said, "No. We find it. Give me the atlas." He found us a detour in 11 minutes using the atlas. A gas station attendant named Hector who had lived in Enid his whole life and knew every road within 60 miles by personal acquaintance, and what Dennis described afterward as basic spatial reasoning, which, he said in the specific tone of a civil engineer who has built actual bridges and has some feelings about being doubted. Hector's detour took us through a stretch of old Route 66 that we hadn't planned to see, and which turned out to be, and I want to be precise about this, one of the finest accidental discoveries of the entire trip. Route 66 Diner Log. Day 4. Sal's Motoring Diner, Chandler, OK. Coffee. Excellent. Biscuits and gravy. Lou ordered a double and looked at it the way a man looks at something he knows will cost him later and proceeds anyway. Dennis had oatmeal and then quietly stole 2 of Lou's biscuits, which Lou pretended not to notice. I had eggs. The waitress called us Hun collectively, which felt like a gift. Lou swallowed Diner, Tucumcari, NM. Technically day 5 but felt continuous. The pie case had 7 varieties. We each had 2 slices. Dennis recorded this in a small notebook he'd started keeping, which Lou and I were pretending not to know about, but which we had both clearly seen and neither mentioned because Dennis noting things was Dennis being happy and we were all for that. The third complication was Dennis's blood pressure, which announced itself on Saturday evening in the parking lot of a motel in Amarillo, when Dennis sat down on the tailgate of the wagon and said, Quietly and without drama, I need to just sit for a minute. Lou and I sat with him. The stars over Amarillo were extraordinary. The enormous, unobstructed stars of a place that has no light pollution and no apologies about it. And the three of us sat on the tailgate without speaking and looked at them for a while, and Dennis's breathing slowed down, and after a while he said, "Carol's going to ask me if I did the exercises." And Lou said, "What are you going to tell her?" And Dennis said, "That I did them." Because sitting on a tailgate looking at stars is a kind of breathing exercise that she would probably endorse. We agreed this was medically defensible. The fourth complication was Lou's secret, which he told us in a Dairy Queen in Amarillo at 9:30 in the evening, because a Dairy Queen at 9:30 is apparently where these things happen on road trips, a fact I could not have predicted but which I now fully accept. Lou's secret was this. He had been offered, 6 months ago, the chance to come out of retirement and run a small regional hardware chain that was struggling and needed restructuring. And he had said no without telling his wife, without telling his kids, without telling us. Because he'd said no because he was afraid. Not afraid of failing. Afraid of succeeding. Afraid of disappearing back into work for another 5 years, and surfacing to find that his grandkids had grown past the age where they still wanted to sit with him on the back porch and learn to identify birds. "But I've been miserable since I said no," he said, into a blizzard. "Because I also love work. I love that stuff. I don't know how to be a person who doesn't fix things." Dennis said, with great care, "Lou, you are fixing things. You think sitting on a porch and knowing the name of a bird isn't fixing something? You think this trip isn't fixing something?" Lou looked at his blizzard. "Call them when we get to Santa Fe," I said. "Tell them you've reconsidered. Tell them you want to do it part-time, remote, 2 days a week, whatever structure means you don't disappear. Negotiate. You spent 30 years negotiating. Think they'd go for that?" "I think," Dennis said, "that a man who spent 30 years turning struggling businesses around probably has a bit of leverage." Lou ate the rest of his blizzard in silence. Then he said, "Norm would have told me this immediately." "Norm would have told you this in 1997. I said. "Yeah." Lou almost smiled. "He would have." Chapter 5. Santa Fe, and what we left there. We arrived in Santa Fe on a Sunday afternoon, after 5 days, approximately 1,200 miles, 4 paper map navigational crises, 1 supplement emergency, 2 breathing exercises. Official. An indeterminate number of roadside diner meals, and a quantity of cassette tape mileage that I estimated at around 40 hours, and which had included, at various points, Norm's copy of a Springsteen live tape that Lou had found at the bottom of the shoebox and held up with an expression I didn't know what to do with except nod at. The wagon had performed magnificently. It had developed, somewhere in Oklahoma, a new sound that Lou described as character, and Dennis described as a lower manifold issue that we're going to ignore because we are not dealing with that right now, and which had resolved itself spontaneously somewhere east of Albuquerque, which Dennis said was probably fine, and which I chose to accept as probably fine, and which Lou interpreted as proof that the car was on our side, which I thought was the correct interpretation. Santa Fe is the kind of place that makes you feel, irrationally, that you've been moving toward it for some time without knowing it. It sits at 7,000 feet and the air is different. Thinner, drier, the light at a different angle. And the adobe buildings are the color of the earth they came from, and the whole place has the feeling of a city that doesn't care what year you think it is, which felt right. We hadn't made a plan for what we'd do when we got there, beyond the fact that Norm had talked about Santa Fe for 30 years. He'd never made it. He'd always meant to. Every few years, one of us would bring it up, and Norm would say, "We should do that, the 4 of us, one of these summers." And then summer would end and winter would come and one of us would have a thing, and life would continue doing what life does, which is fill up the space where the things you mean to do are waiting. We found a diner on the plaza. A real one, booths and counter and a jukebox in the corner that actually worked, which Lou fed 2 quarters and which played, with the timing so perfect that all 3 of us looked at each other in the way you look at each other when something arrives that you didn't arrange. The Willie Nelson song, On the Road Again, which Norm had sung at the top of his lungs on the original trip, badly and completely without embarrassment, the way Norm did everything. We ordered coffee. We ate. We didn't talk much, which was different from not having anything to say. We had everything to say. We'd been saying it for 5 days, and this was the other kind of quiet, the kind that comes at the end of something and isn't sad exactly but has the weight of knowing that this specific version of the thing is finished. After dinner, we walked around the plaza in the early evening light, and at some point Lou stopped at a shop that sold handmade things and bought a small clay figure of a roadrunner, which he said was for his wife, and maybe it was. And Dennis stopped at a bookshop and bought a regional road atlas. A proper one, spiral bound. And wrote something in the front page in his careful engineer's hand, and I asked what he'd written, and he said, "A note for Carol." And I didn't ask what the note said, because some things are right-sized for their person. I found a postcard shop. I stood at the rack for a while, and then I bought a card with a picture of the New Mexico landscape on it. The mesa, the sky, the particular amber of the late afternoon light. And I addressed it to Marcus Webb, and I looked him up on the back of my phone standing on the sidewalk in Santa Fe, and I found him, a 40-year-old man in Cincinnati who coached youth basketball on weekends, and apparently had been doing so for 12 years, and I wrote on the card, "I was your JV coach in 2003. I let you down and I've thought about it ever since. I hope you've had a good life. From what I can see, you have. Coach K." I found a stamp in my wallet and mailed it from a box on the corner that still worked, which felt unlikely and right. We found a hotel on a side street. Not a chain, a genuine adobe place with a courtyard and a proprietor named Elena, who looked at the wagon and then at us with an expression of perfect benign skepticism, as though she had seen people like us before and had decided on balance that we were harmless. And we sat in the courtyard after dark with whatever the local brewery made, and let the altitude and the miles settle into our bones. Question. Lou said. Go ahead. I said. Are we different people than we were a week ago? I thought about it. No. I said. I think we're the same people we were a week ago. We remembered the parts we forgot. Which parts? Dennis said. The part that knows what matters. I said. The part that didn't have a mortgage yet and hadn't learned to be careful. The part that gets in the wagon. Dennis considered this. That's very profound for 9:30 in the evening. I've been saving it since Kansas. Lou laughed, the big Lou laugh, the one that goes up and out and has always been the loudest thing in any room he's ever occupied. And Dennis's face did the thing it does when he's laughing but trying not to, which is the funniest thing Dennis's face does. And I laughed too, and for a moment the courtyard of a small hotel in Santa Fe was the most inhabited place in the world. We drove back on a different route. We used the atlas. We stopped at diners. Dennis called Carol from a payphone in Flagstaff. An actual working payphone, which he found and used with the satisfaction of a man who had always believed in their continued existence, and talked to her for 20 minutes while Lou and I ate pie, and didn't listen. Lou called the hardware chain when we reached Albuquerque and talked about terms for a long time in the parking lot, and came back in and said, maybe 2 days a week, project basis. And we both said that sounded right and he agreed that it did. I thought about Norm every day. Not with grief exactly. Or not only with grief. But with the specific gratitude you feel for someone who knew you well enough to give you something you needed, without ever being able to tell you what it was. Who arranged for the trip to happen by not being here to take it? Who managed, even from wherever Norm had gone, to get us back in the wagon? The cassette player gave out for good somewhere in western Ohio, in the last 100 miles, the mechanism finally deciding it had done what it came to do. We drove the rest of the way in silence, which was fine. We'd said enough. The road made its own sound, the engine made its own sound, and between Columbus and home the afternoon light did something to the trees that I haven't got a word for, but Norm would have. And when we got back we told his daughter about the trip, all of it, and she cried, and laughed, and said, "That is so him. He would have absolutely made you do that." "Yeah," said Lou. "He would," said Dennis. "He did," I said.